Hello, and welcome to A Livelihood. I'm your host, Karma Kitaj, and we're calling the show something slightly different now. It's A Livelihood, New Adventures as We Age. And today I am going to introduce you to Sandra Shuman, who has made some transitions in her life, and she is still making them. So we're going to find out how she's done this and what's in her future. Welcome, Sandra.
Hi. Thanks, Karma. Yes.
So why don't we start by maybe thinking about where, I know that you told me that you had been an academic in your early adulthood.
Earlier incarnation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you were a German language and literature professor, correct?
Yes.
And then some things happened. You had kind of an epiphany when you were teaching one day. Could you say something about that?
I loved teaching, but soon after I got my doctorate, after spending years to get my doctorate, I realized the fit wasn't perfect. I really wasn't happy being a scholar. What I did enjoy was teaching. And so the rapport that I had with students became all important to me. I saw that as a key to being able to motivate people and get results with students. And one day I was teaching a class, I think it was a literature class in translation, and I looked up and I saw the students all sitting in their rows obediently looking at me. And I felt it was almost as if I suddenly could perceive a glass wall between me and the students. In that moment I said, my goodness, I'm treating my students like all my professors have treated me. And I stopped in mid-sentence, and I sat down in a chair, and I propped my legs up on another chair. I made myself very comfortable, and the whole class is like waiting to see what's going to happen. And at that time I smoked, and I kind of dramatically took out a cigarette and lit it and puffed on the cigarette. And then
it was a long pause.
It was a long pause, and then I looked at my students and I said, like Alice in Wonderland, what do you want to do? And there was a dumbfounded silence, and then a conversation began between us. And I'd like to say that conversation that started with those students back then so many, many years ago is still going on in some way in my life. That developed into the method I teach today.
So at some point you decided you didn't want to be an academic, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
So tell us about that.
Well, it was a long, slow, difficult evolution. I really wanted to leave the university, but couldn't see my way clear. And so I continued wherever there was leeway or margin for experimenting. I developed mini courses, dream and writing workshops, and in the literature courses kept incorporating things that I was learning, how to trigger certain responses in my students that would bring forth very creative results. For example, instead of writing a response to a short story, they could draw a picture and then talk about that picture.
I guess that made your academic life more interesting, just more compelling for you.
It certainly did. It certainly did, yeah.
Right.
But I felt constrained by the conventions of academia. And the thought of being on my own and not having to work according to a syllabus, it was very, very attractive.
So at some point you decided to take that plunge and to leave your university position.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then what happened?
Well, first of all, before I took the plunge, I knew I was going to take it because I had a dream of myself driving to the university as a little old lady, and as I looked at this little old lady in the car, she was dressed in black and she turned into a skeleton. So I knew, this is over. It's over whether I want it to be or not. So I finally had the courage to give it up. And that was a very difficult transition period. I had a deep fire to do what I was doing and to work with people the way I was working. And I was young and foolhardy enough not to be too worried about where the next meal was coming from. So I scraped by for several years until eventually a practice grew up around me, and I was earning a decent living and doing my creative work on the side. And leaving the university, I found my groove. And when you do, that joy or that sense of being in sync with yourself then opens up doors for you that wouldn't have opened up otherwise.
So we want to talk about your artwork and how you got to become the artist that you are. And I'm just remembering a story that you told me at one of these serendipitous happenings that I think was important to you when you ran into the German couple and started speaking with them.
Yes.
So how did that
inform
what you did afterwards?
Oh, that was just amazing. Talk about synchronicity. I had been out of the university, I think, many, many years, and thought really that my career in German was over. And in a certain sense it was. But I don't have that particular magic book. That's the art journal I teach people how to make. I don't have the one with me with that image in it, but I had created an image that had fascinated me of a very, very old door. And not long after I made that image in my book, I was at Porter Square at the Gap. There used to be a Gap at Porter Square. I was shopping, and I heard a couple in Cambridge.
We're talking about.
Yeah. And there was a couple, a very interesting-looking couple shopping, and I heard them speaking German. And for some reason, I don't know why, I felt very comfortable in going over and speaking German with them and helping the woman make a selection of an item. She was having difficulty selecting some item or other. And we got into a very animated discussion quickly. And I had just published my first book on creativity. Anyway, I'm there and talking with this couple, and she had just graduated from Lesley College with a master's degree in art therapy. So I invited them over for a glass of champagne before they were leaving for Germany the next day. And they were enthusiastic about my book and said they were about to open an art therapy institute, and that when they did, they would invite me to give a talk.
In Germany?
In Germany. Which they did 2 years later. I got a fax. We're opening the school. Would you like to come and give a lecture and a sample workshop? Which I did about 15 or 16 years ago and have been doing ever since.
So we have a few photos of you teaching, and we can put those up on the screen. So here we go. You in Italy with a group of people that you teach, right?
Yes, this is a group of women that met me at the institute where I taught regularly in Germany, and they asked to be trained in my method. They're all art therapists, and they wanted to use my technique called the magic book. And so over a period of 2 years, they took regular workshops, and then this was an intensive training week at a beautiful 200-year-old farmhouse on the top of a mountain vineyard in Italy. And we studied hard every day and had a wonderful time at the same time. So it was great. And this is a workshop I'm giving, a weekend seminar at the Institute in Germany, where I was invited to regularly teach the students there, the fledgling art therapists, how to create the journal that I show people how to make.
So let's talk about some of your pictures. Tell me what you were thinking about this picture.
Well, I wouldn't know how to designate it either, because I'm not a trained artist. I'm a self-taught artist. And what's interesting to me about this piece, this is a mixed media. This is acrylic paint and images that I have collaged into the painting. Some of them are half-painted, some of them are just the image from newspapers or what have you, magazines. And what's interesting to me about this piece is the fact that it took a long time to develop, and the surface that you see is basically the result of several failed paintings underneath. And so I've gotten eventually a beautiful color that I like with the planet and the background that basically is the accumulation of all the layers underneath that didn't succeed. And this one is another earlier piece called Pyramid. And that reminds me of my childhood. My father used to build a lot, and I used to love wood.
This is called what?
This is not really got a name. It's a Buddha and the Angel, and it's from one of my magic books. And each one of those journals takes me about 10 years to complete.
Thank you for coming, Sandra. I appreciate it.
I thank you for asking me, Carmen. This has been a lot of fun.